is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Let's go, baby.
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break! Today is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020, Season 15, Episode 112 of The Break, live from Mobile, Alabama, and the Reese's Senior Bowl. David Hellman, Nick Eatman, I'm Kyle Yeomans filling in for Derek Eagleton.
How much did Derek pay you to know the episode
Zero.
title and all that stuff? I don't believe
Zero. I went back and listened to it. Wow. Now, the thing is,
what'd you find when you went back and listened to it? This is the first time it's been correct all year.
He hasn't switched it to 2020 yet.
Well, he goes
the first two.
He goes by a completely different
does he go
calendar.
by season?
He goes by the start of the league year. It's his own thing. Did not mean to have a 5-minute discussion about Derek's show sequence.
I just thought it was interesting that he said that he kept saying 2019 and we've never caught it. That means we're not paying attention.
That's okay.
That's okay. It's all good.
I went back and listened to it to pick it up, just to kind of bring it up for you to listen to.
So thorough.
I'm all over the place. But we are live from Mobile, Alabama, the Reese's Senior Bowl all week long here on DallasCowboys.com. This is not the draft show, despite the background Cowboys break being represented by these two from DallasCowboys.com. But, guys, a fun week already. Day one in the books. Day two coming up today. We'll be heading out to practices here in just a little bit. But really, after day one of the Senior Bowl, there were a lot of storylines Cowboys-wise. Stephen Jones talked to the media, and then you guys really got a chance to dive in and look at some of these guys that the Cowboys could potentially be looking for come draft day in April.
Yeah, this is that time of year where you're kind of still talking about last year, but not as much, now because you got a coaching change. All eyes are forward. But, this is you can look at the players on the field and, do you need some of these guys? Are they going to come in? Are they going to fit in this team? And then, of course, you got one eye on the field. You got also, where's Steven? Where's Jerry? That's kind of another reason why we're here. So the Senior Bowl always has, multiple purposes that you're trying to figure out here. Some Cowboys, some future Cowboys maybe.
Yeah, I think it speaks to what's going on with the Cowboys right now, that this is as small of a contingent as I can ever remember coming to the Senior Bowl. For the team, we sent everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. But, Jerry Jones was barely in Mobile. I think he had to go to an award ceremony in Houston last night. Mike McCarthy and his coaching staff stayed back. So this is Stephen Jones and the scouting department. Like I said, I don't want to call it bare bones because the whole scouting department is here, but I think it speaks to the focus that Mike McCarthy's got on what they need to get going at the Star, getting his program in place. And as a draft nerd, I kind of dig that the focus is so on the draft here at the Senior Bowl, which is obviously the point. But to Nick's point, there's usually so many other things going on here, but it really seems like the Cowboys are focused on the draft.
And we've done these in the past where Jerry talks for 30, 40 minutes, and then Steven will talk for 30 minutes, and Will McClay maybe, and it was 9.5 minutes yesterday with Stephen Jones. Now, some of that could have been the fact that it was really cold. I don't care what the phone says of how cold it was. It says 42 degrees, whatever. It was worse than that. And I was only down there for 10 minutes. A lot of these guys that are in here that are behind the scenes working on this stuff, they were bundled up, and it was like an Arctic freeze down there.
Yeah, Scott Purcell was in a ski jacket the whole time and having fun with that. But
that's why Stephen Jones, after about 5 minutes, was like, anything else, guys?
You guys good?
No, we're not.
We can do this in Dallas, can't we?
But there wasn't a lot that kind of came out of yesterday. We can get into some of it, obviously we will, but there wasn't this hard pressing oh my God, I can't believe that. Sure, Jason Witten still not talking about Jason Witten. Happy for Jason Garrett. Things that you kind of expected.
Kind of going back to the coaching staff before we get into Steven, we'll hear some of the quotes from Steven here in just a moment, but with Mike McCarthy and his move here from Green Bay originally, where he didn't necessarily have a whole lot of say come draft process-wise, does that speak to him trusting the scouting staff so early on in his tenure by sticking back and not being in Mobile, or is this just kind of changing of the guard in terms of the coaching staff and what he has to do back in Frisco?
I think it's a little bit of both, actually. Yeah, I do think that, with the Senior Bowl, it was like, all right, you guys go out there. Let's find some good players. Tell me the guys we need to be looking at. And then when we get to the Combine and maybe some pro days, we'll look at them. We'll tell you what we think and if maybe break some ties or whatever. But they're still in that process. Evaluate the guys, tell us who's out there, and then we'll give you our input when it's time.
Well, that is one of the most fascinating storylines for me for this entire offseason is what that relationship is going to be like. Because, I mean, if you watch the draft show or you follow the draft process, it's a tale as old as time that it's such a collective process, and the coaches had a large say in that. Tristan Hill, the coaches had a large say in getting him to Dallas. The coaches were in love with Leighton Vander Esch, not to dog on him too much. I mean, they made some good decisions too, but they had a heavy hand in that process. We are still trying to figure out just how heavy Mike McCarthy's hand is going to be. It's one thing for him to say, we want good players, let's go find some good players. But when it gets down to nut cutting time, are they really going to sit back and not be part of it? Because that hasn't been the way that it's been with the Cowboys for the last decade. So, we tried to talk to Stephen Jones about that yesterday. I think it's still early in the process to really have a firm handle on how that's going to work. But I can't wait to see what that collective decision-making process is going to look like with the new regime.
And with the new regime and everything that has to kind of be put in place for McCarthy as a whole, what is it going to be like, and how much realistic film are these guys going to watch before the draft process is really getting into crunch time?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's the biggest thing.
And like I said, they will. They're not just going to ignore the process. That would be criminal. You want your coaches to be part of selecting your draft class. But like I said, Mike McCarthy's been hired for about 3 weeks, and his coaching staff's been in place for less than that. So I don't think that they're ready to hit the ground running on that as of yet. That's Mike didn't bring his staff here, which I think is a great decision, honestly, with all the stuff they've got to get squared away. But February, March, you're going to bring in, you're still bringing in official visitors. They get a bunch, 30 of them to bring into this facility. Obviously, your coaching staff is going to be part of that. So, again, really interested to see just how hands-on or hands-off they are.
Looking at what Stephen Jones also talked about yesterday, he talked a little bit about Jason Witten and also just where the priority lies in terms of these free agents and exactly what the Cowboys are going to do in order to attack those free agents. Let's take a listen.
Quote-unquote reset?
Well, it's already. It's been urgent for us. We want to certainly get that done, and that's our number one priority as we go into the off season is to get his contract. Hopefully, find some resolution to it and get that done.
Do you have any idea on what? See if we can idea on Jason Witten in the future there with him. Has there been anything you've had discussions with him?
Really nothing there to comment on.
You talked about last offseason a lot at this time was taking the next step. Even though you have all these free agents, you have a new coaching staff. Is that still the goal? Is it
absolutely? And I think we've got a good, good team that's in its prime. We've got a good mixture of players, and part of the reason why Jerry and I were really set on finding not only a coach with experience, but a coach that had real success in the playoffs and had played in big games, and that was very important that we find that guy because we do believe this team, can certainly have that type of success.
Does putting a franchise tag on a quarterback change a lot of what you would want to do in free agency? Does it limit you if you have that tag?
No. We can work around that.
Jones saying there definitively, Dak Prescott's our guy. He's our number one priority in free agency. That's not necessarily new.
Right.
But the thing is, he said Amari is number 2. Amari's the second priority. Where does that kind of resonate with you guys? Because now it kind of sets the pecking order as to what the Cowboys are going to do in the offseason.
Well, and I think it should because, when Dak is the key to everything here. I asked Steven yesterday about can you function with all the things you want to do if you're giving him a franchise tag? And he sounded like that was no big deal. Sure. That's just $30 million on the cap, right? Or what is it, 20?
It's 33 if they go exclusive. But they got $88 million in cap space. I think I get it. They've got like 27 guys to re-sign, but the Cowboys have a lot of room to work with.
Yeah, they do. $33 million just like that. I mean,
We'll throw another 16 on top of it if you transition tag Amari Cooper. Now you're talking. I mean, I'm not good at math, but that's about $50 million.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. You don't want to do that.
And then where does that put the rest of your roster? Guys like Byron Jones on
Have
the back
fun.
end. Yeah, exactly. You're basically writing him off at that point.
Yeah, and that's when he was walking off. He said 1 and 2, and it wasn't a 1A and 1B. This was a Dak is 1 and Amari's 2. And so
I don't think that's super surprising, though.
No.
I mean, it's something we could have guessed at, and I think there's always going to be the contingent of people that want to try to deal Dak or find somebody in the draft. That's not going to happen. I don't know how
many times have you been hit up for Joe Burrow?
More times than I can count, and it's fun to talk about, but it's not going to happen. But I am interested to see what exactly that looks like, because if I had to guess, Dak is heading for a franchise tag like that. You don't see very many of these negotiations sort themselves out before the start of the league year. Because, I mean, theoretically, Dak could hit free agency and see how much he's truly worth. Obviously, he would want to do that.
And it's gone so far. It's gone so far here where even the season was gone. It's been some really good moments from Dak. It's been some moments where, he obviously could be better. I mean, at the end of the day, he was an 8-8 quarterback. And yes, he put up a lot of yards, and he had some moments of growth, even though one of the coaches there is no longer here. I mean, John Kitna, I think Kitna helped a lot. I think Kellen Moore, I'm sure, helped some as well. But the fact is that Dak, he didn't in the season the way you want him to. You want this guy to be clutch, make plays in the fourth quarter, bring him back when they need to. He didn't do that. Do I think he's still a franchise quarterback? Yes. I mean, he's the guy. I wouldn't change it. I just don't know if he helped himself from a money standpoint. And then there's going to be guys that did. There's guys that went on over the top that are, have elevated themselves. It's a strong free agents class of quarterbacks.
Well, and I think you can go all the way back to last year's offseason with Dak, especially the talks that were had going into the preseason when they really kind of ramped up, and that's where you got the 30 to 40 million kind of range that they were talking about in there. And I think Dak at that moment said, you know what, let's put a pause on this. Let me bet on myself. Let me bet on myself for just a little bit. And it worked out at the beginning. It looked like the first couple weeks of the season he was going to win that bet, and he was going to win it outright. And I'm not going to say he necessarily lost the bet, because I feel like we're right back where we started last year, right around the low 30s, potentially being that number that really gets this deal done.
I think he won it, to be totally honest with you. And
You think so?
Yes, absolutely. And look, I know he went 8-8. I know he didn't get the job done.
But how much did he win it, though? That's the question.
All I know is the San Francisco 49ers set the market with Jimmy Garoppolo back at $27 million 3 years ago off the strength of 8 games. And it looks great right now because he's in the Super Bowl. They had no idea that was going to happen when they signed him to that deal. Same thing with, does Derek Carr have a better resume than Dak Prescott? No, but he set the market at one time in his life. Matt Stafford. Dak has already accomplished more than Matt Stafford in terms of postseason success. I'm not saying it's a lot, but he has. And he set the market. That's what I always argue with people about, is that's just the way these things work. And I think, sorry, I know you got a point to make, but Dak was already in the range with Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, and he went out and had the best season of his career. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but if anything, I think he firmly entrenched himself in the low to mid 30 range. He might not set the market, but he's not going below that. And then the other part, which Stephen Jones did an amazing job of not answering the question, is Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson are eligible to negotiate contracts this offseason. Pat Mahomes is probably going to be the first $40 million player in NFL history. And all of a sudden, Dak's price ceiling goes up. You could pay him 34 right now, but if Pat Mahomes gets 40 in 2 months, and all of a sudden Dak says, well, I want 37 if Pat gets 40. And again, I know people don't want to hear that, but that's just the way these types of things work. So I think Dak Prescott is sitting pretty right now.
But to me, if Mahomes gets 40, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm like, how could you even be 37? How could you be close to that? How is he close to Pat Mahomes at all?
Yeah.
I mean,
statistically,
because that's
Super Bowl.
That's what the Chiefs' willingness to pay Mahomes says a starting quarterback is worth. That's why.
Right, but I'm just saying, that to me, when Russell Wilson got in at 36, I was like, okay, well, how can you be higher than that? I mean, you're not.
He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
He won a Super Bowl. If they would have run the ball, he wins 2 Super Bowls. He's got he's just done more with his career, and I think Pat Mahomes has as well. Even Watson has. So I don't know. It just depends on
You think Watson's done more than Dak?
He hasn't been to an AFC Championship game. He's lost 4 divisional rounds.
Neither's Dak, but
I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if anything, they're even. At this
I guess they're even.
1 year behind
right.
in the draft.
How many
class.
playoff wins does Watson have? It can't be more than 1 or 2, right?
I think it's 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they've won 4 division titles. Or division. Oh, I don't know. It's right around 3 probably.
This is only his 3rd year.
Which, to go back to my point, though, I know Garoppolo's in the Super Bowl. His resume was not better when he set the market. Neither was Derek Carr's. Kirk Cousins just he just made his longest playoff push, and he got obliterated in the divisional round just like Dak did. So
those deals to me are always 50% what you've done, 50% of what you're going to do. And if that's the case with Mahomes, that's really scary because if he's getting paid what he's done and what he's going to do, it's going to be higher. 40 may not get it done for him.
True. No, and you're 100% right. Listen, Pat Mahomes is in a category all of his own. That's not the point I'm trying to make. Right. But if Pat Mahomes signs that deal this offseason, that's the way negotiations work. Dak and his people are going to see that. I would be shocked if they're going to try to compete with Mahomes' number, but they're going to say, well, we slot in here now, because $36 million a year is all of a sudden a lot less than top of the market. It's just the way it works, which is why I think it's so important for them to get this deal done sooner rather than later.
What if the Chiefs? They're not in a hurry. They don't have to do.
No, they absolutely don't. They absolutely do not. They've got him under contract for 2 more years.
They could pay. God, can you imagine what he will make in his 4th year if he's
unreal again?
Yeah. Well, what if they just say we're not doing anything right now? He's probably would hold out.
He could. It's fat. He is so far and away the best player in the NFL right now. Just in terms what he brings to that team, and that's we're sitting here arguing Dak's credentials. You can't say anything about Mahomes. No.
He's
been to the AFC title game in both of his years as the starter. He made it to the Super Bowl in his 2nd season.
Very well could win the Super Bowl.
There's no knock on his credentials at all. You can't do anything with it. Which, he could almost name his price.
Well, and I think the argument that you brought up about comparing Dak and Deshaun Watson's resume, I think that needs to probably stand true. That's where I see where you're talking about in terms of the contract potentially for Dak growing a little bit, because Deshaun Watson's in that same conversation right now as Patrick Mahomes, as those guys that could be re-up contract-wise. But we'll dive deeper into that coming up here in just a little bit. Let's take a quick break. When we come back here on Cowboys Break, we will dive in a little bit deeper into the Senior Bowl and look at some of these individuals that the Cowboys potentially could be picking up in the 1st round and maybe even a little bit later come April in the NFL Draft. We'll be back in a minute here on DallasCowboys.com radio.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Essilor is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, helping fans see more and do more with our best vision solutions. Our lens technologies reveal a world more beautiful than you can imagine. For a limited time, get the Essilor Next Gen offer. When you buy the latest generation of Transitions lenses with select Essilor lenses, you can choose a 2nd pair of clear lenses for free with qualifying frame purchases. Restrictions apply. Find a participating eye care professional by visiting EssilorUSA.com. Essilor. See more, do more.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
Right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus!
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS One score, September 2019.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. This is The Break, live from Mobile, Alabama, the Reese's Senior Bowl. Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Kyle Yeomans with you as I fill in for Derek Eagleton on the road here from Alabama. And, guys, the Senior Bowl this week. And we talked a little bit about Stephen Jones and the Dak and Amari contract situation going on this offseason. But, of course, he was here for a reason. He was watching players. He was scouting a little bit, even though it may have only just been for a couple moments yesterday. He only stayed for the first practice, which was the South team here in Mobile. But at the same time, he, in speaking with you guys and the rest of the media following that first practice, kind of talked about the shift of players and the importance of the Cowboys to potentially draft just playmakers as opposed to fitting them into schemes, which is what we've been used to seeing as Cowboys fans for quite some time. How much of a shift is that? Is that a huge shift, monumental, that Cowboys fans don't even really know where to look at because it's been such a common thing for us?
I think, I asked the question to Steven. I thought he was going to give me an answer of like, well, that's kind of what we've always done, but he didn't. He said, no, it is kind of a change. And we've talked about this before. We hate when there was free agents there. Like, why don't they get this guy? He's a great player, and they need this position. They need a safety. They need a linebacker. They need this guy. Yeah, he's not a good scheme fit. These defensive tackles, not a good scheme fit. And we're like, all right, well, this scheme's got you 8-8. I'm like what? It's just been frustrating.
Yeah.
So now we'll see if it actually goes down like this. But it just sounds like let's just get the players in. Let's see what we've got, and then we'll figure it out.
That kind of goes back to what I was saying. I want to see how that works because at the end, there's going to be some element of that. You're not
going to draft a quarterback at 17 potentially if you re-sign Dak. You're not going to go for certain spots,
not only that, but you can even look at free agency and Mike Nolan's going to have a preferred type of safety that he thinks can play well for him, or defensive tackle for that matter. It might be a completely different archetype from what we're used to under Rod Marinelli, but coaches are still going to have their preference. But I wonder, again, how much say will they have, or will they just, I love the idea. We need to find Will McClay and talk to him. I love the idea of Mike McCarthy just giving him a spreadsheet of like, this is what we're looking for in terms of traits at every position. Go do your thing. And that's how I would ideally like this to go, is if Will's kind of got the grocery list and he's like, all right, this is what they're looking for. I think I can figure this out.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting to look at, just to see the kind of conversations that would be had between the coaching staff and the scouting department with, like we talked about in the first segment, such a new rapport between those two departments, the coaching staff and scouting.
And Steven said yesterday that there have already been some productive talks between, McCarthy and Will and him and Jerry, just kind of the whole front office brain trust. It hasn't been a long time, but obviously, you want to get those ducks in a row heading into the draft process.
It almost sounds like you don't need it as much.
Yeah.
You don't really need to make sure, if you had a new scout that came in, like let's say last year or 2 years ago, and he's like, I got this defensive tackle. They're like, whoa, do you know what Rod Marinelli likes and all that? Well, no, but you need to figure it out. In this case, it's like, all right, I got 2 or 3 really good players. We're going to figure this out, and you guys decide which one you like. I like this one over this one, and and it's not like you have to know. The coaches and scouts don't need to go on some retreat together and hang out and get to know each other.
Yeah.
It's like, and clearly they didn't. They didn't come here for But again, there's still a combine. That's really when it gets serious.
Yeah.
Now you start ramping it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's I kind of loved Mike McCarthy's honesty last week when he met with us, and he's got a lot of work to do getting everything together in Frisco, but he was also like, the tape is like HD quality. Well, like, what do I need to be in Mobile for? I can just flip it on in my office. I was like, you're absolutely right. Like, if you're not networking, I get why the scouts are here. That makes sense. But, like, if you're not looking for a job or looking to network in this day and age, I'm not sure what benefit there is for a coach to be here. Because you're going to have a chance to meet with all these guys in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. They can come to your facility. You can go work them out. You're going to have about 25 opportunities to see all of these guys.
Yeah.
So I appreciate McCarthy's honesty. Like, we can watch these practices anywhere.
And they won. I mean, that was the winner because if they're going to get the tape and they're going to watch it in 72-degree, weather,
for real.
Yeah, they're good
For real.
Yeah, they didn't have to put on 4 layers or 5 layers to get out.
A lot of use out of my heavy jackets
the
this week.
Gulf Coast weather. With all that being said, you're talking about McCarthy and the generality that he has in terms of saying we aren't going to define a scheme yet. I mean, he said last week that there's going to be 4 men up front on the defensive side.
Took a while to get that out. Too.
Exactly.
It's like
Little
you didn't really want to
hesitant
say
with
that.
He really didn't.
But even when he said it, he still kind of backtracked it a little bit and said, hey, we're going to run everything, though.
Good.
Watch out. We're going to run a little bit of everything.
Let's go.
Is this mindset in terms of going and scouting players based off of the fact that you don't really know exactly what scheme you're going to run on defense and the majority of our draft needs are probably relying on that side of the ball?
Well, I mean, they've got a better idea than we do, obviously. And I think it's exciting because, the analogy I always beat into the ground with the Garrett regime was like color by numbers, is like, well, this is our defensive tackle and he goes here. And this is our cornerback and he did just very regimented. And that's why a guy like Tyrann Mathieu supposedly didn't fit here because basically they were like, well, he doesn't have a clear-cut position, so we don't know what to do with him. That drove me up the wall because he's clearly a really good player. He's all pro and going to the Super Bowl. It's exciting to think that they can be changing that attitude. Maybe this will be a multiple defense. Maybe we'll see some 3-4 looks. We'll see some 4-3 looks. 4-2-5. Belichick's up in New England running like a 2-3-7 or whatever the hell alignment that was this year. It's exciting to think that they could do a little bit of all of that. And so we're going to figure it out as the draft process goes. But right now, I don't know what they're looking for.
No.
And that's that. I feel like that is one of our biggest assignments from now until April is to figure out what they have their eye on in this draft.
And I think it'll be before that is when you'll really see kind of what they're looking for. You'll see a mentality change in March. I mean, because we talked about 25, 26 free agents that they've got. A lot of those guys are on the defensive line. So we're going to find out kind of how they feel about these guys, Robert Quinn, Malik Collins, I guess is there more? I guess Michael Bennett is in that group too.
Yeah.
Where do they put the value on some of those defensive linemen and maybe defensive linemen from other teams? That's the one thing that I think we kind of overlook a lot is, Mike McCarthy, as opposed to other coaches that have come from, like let's say Joe Judge, who was in New England, and now he's with the Giants. So you ask him about somebody from the Bears, and he's like, well, we didn't play the Bears, but like Mike McCarthy, supposedly, they were looking at all teams last year. So from free agent standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see how well equipped he is to know what's out there in the landscape of free agency because supposedly he was watching not every game, as he said, but he watched a lot of games.
And he backtracked on that one a little bit during the press conference.
Which is do what you got to do.
Live your life, man.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the guys you mentioned, the defensive line needing some holes to fill, one of the guys that could potentially fill those holes at defensive line, Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina, could be there at 17 for the Cowboys. He's at the Senior Bowl here in Mobile. We got a chance to talk to him yesterday, and he said something pretty interesting about where he thinks he could be as compared to Aaron Donald.
I think I can be better. Honestly, that's just the expectations I have for myself, and that's just how high I am on myself.
So quite the confidence from Mr. Kinlaw with the here at the Senior Bowl saying that I think I could be better than Aaron Donald.
If the NFL scouts think that too, he won't be at 17.
That's fair.
So I mean, if they think anywhere close to that,
Donald fell to what,
13? Something like
10?
I think he was right outside the top 10.
It's crazy to think that he did not go close to the top 5 by first round standards.
What is Kinlaw's height, weight, and all that?
6'6", over 300.
Yeah, 302 I think is what he is.
So he's passing the test. Aaron Donald didn't do that. He was.
No, for sure.
He fell 13. He fell 12 spots because it was he's too short. He's not going to be killing people like that.
Yeah. It's an interesting dichotomy because Donald was the most decorated defensive player in college football history. Like, he won every award you can win, dominated at Pitt. Kinlaw, freakishly talented guy. I mean, which actually I was going to say, mediocre program, but so was Pitt.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter
That's
for
fair.
Donald. Whereas, Kinlaw doesn't have the freakish production. He does have the freakish measurables. I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder there, because you see some tape where he absolutely just kills people. He's got some really crazy bend if you saw one-on-one pass rush drills yesterday. But at the same time, you're like, okay, where's the consistency? So it is interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome that he thinks he can be better than Donald. Like, every draft prospect I've ever talked to.
You're not sold, though?
Oh, I mean, I if he's there at 17, I'm definitely interested.
Okay.
I just think it's funny that Donald used the Senior Bowl as a launching pad. So it's only Wednesday. Kinlaw's got 2 more days of practice to go. We'll see what people are saying about him, because this is really the only opportunity where you actually get to do football. He looked pretty good yesterday. I don't know if he looked as good as Aaron Donald did when he came here, though.
Aaron Donald was the 13th overall pick in 2014.
There we go.
And by that time, that's St. Louis Rams.
Utterly insane.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And Nick's absolutely right. Like, if he's 6'1" instead of 5'11", he's top 3 pick.
I remember that draft. There were 3 defensive players the Cowboys really wanted, and then and they all went ahead of the Cowboys. They're sitting at, I believe, 16. And Donald was one of them. Anthony Barr was another. Ryan Shazier.
And they all went off the board within 5 picks.
And we all
kind of see that lining up in the draft like this too. I mean, you got guys like Grant Delpit. You got a guy like Javon Kinlaw, maybe Xavier McKinney.
Sure.
Those are 3 guys the Cowboys could be honing in on in terms of a draft pick defensively in that first round, and sitting at 17. There's nothing that says that they won't be gone by the time 17 rolls
Let's also
around.
point out the fact the Cowboys got Zach Martin.
Yeah.
At 16, and had to fight off Jerry not to take Johnny Manziel, and they ended up, with Zach Martin. So it ended up working out great. Yeah, I guess you would hate saying this about Zach Martin. Would you rather have Aaron Donald?
Yes. And that's no disrespect towards Zach Martin to say
he's
that
been incredible.
You would rather have arguably the best defensive player in the NFL over the last decade.
You have a great memory when it comes to draft. Who went number 1?
In that draft, that would have been 2014. Was that Clowney's draft? Or was Clowney?
No, Clowney was before that. I think he was 2013, wasn't he?
No. The number 1.
Sorry to ask this.
No, this is gonna drive me crazy.
Derails it a little bit.
But my point is I don't even remember who went top 5. But it's going to be hard to say that Donald and Martin wouldn't be in the top 3 or 4 picks there.
It was Jadeveon Clowney, by the way, as the top pick.
I knew it.
Well done, David Hellman.
Good
All right,
memory,
let's
Dave.
go through a little bit.
Okay.
It's a pretty loaded draft, but the top 5 is not that great.
Yeah, you got Clowney and then Greg Robinson, the offensive tackle
Still
from
in the
Auburn.
league?
No. Or if he is, he's like,
I don't
That's
think
unbelievable.
so.
He's just hanging on.
Blake Bortles, Sammy Watkins, he's still in the league, of course, at 4. And then it goes Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews, Mike Evans.
Not bad.
Pretty good. I mean, those are 3 guys that have been to a Pro Bowl. Justin Gilbert was 8th. Anthony Barr went 9. Eric Ebron 10th. Odell Beckham went 12th to the Giants, 1 pick before Aaron Donald.
That was a really great draft. But to Nick's point, if you're looking at this, you're saying
if you're redoing it,
Khalil Mack, Mike Evans,
I think if you
Aaron Donald and Zach
redid
Martin.
that draft, you would probably take Zach Martin.
We got a pretty good pass rusher in that
or
draft,
fourth.
too, because that was the same draft the Cowboys went and selected DeMarcus Lawrence in the second round at 34.
Yeah.
So you got a good pass rusher with there, and you got in your first 2 picks, you got Zach Martin and D-Law. So.
And where are the Cowboys picking? Right around there.
That same spot.
It sounds dumb to say, but, this is as high as they've picked in recent memory because, thanks to all these good draft picks, they've been finishing with winning records. Like, this is their worst record since 2016.
Yeah.
And they got Martin after a mediocre season in 2013. So I'm really excited about who's going to be there for them at 17.
What I like about that pick, and certain positions are that way, is that if you say 16th, 17th pick, can you really get a good player? If you get valued spots like a guard.
Yeah.
If you take a guard at 16 or 17, you're going to get probably the best guard in the draft. Maybe. It depends. I know Quentin Nelson a few years ago went 5 or 6, and he's been awesome. But you take a guard that high, if you take a center, I'm not saying the Cowboys need those spots, but tight end traditionally is that way. Now, there's an exception to the rule, I guess, in Eric Ebron, but he's an interesting name too because he's going to be a free agent, right?
That is really interesting.
And I think
that's super interesting.
Wow, I think he's a guy that Jerry and Will, and I think we'll see about McCarthy if they like that kind of player. But that wouldn't be surprising to me. We've got a guy in Blake Jarwin. Yeah, we like him, but he's a 26-year-old free agent.
Let's go out and see what we can do here.
That
$80 million of cash.
They can't fill all their needs in the draft.
No.
And it's almost it's refreshing. Like it would be so easy to just turn this into like the Dak and Amari watch for the rest of the year, But like that I'm just not even worried about that. Those guys they're going to get tagged if I had to guess, and those negotiations will play out on their own time. But I don't have to sit here and wonder whether he's going to be part of the team.
Right.
Either one of them.
Yeah.
And so that allows us to focus on what do you do at tight end? What do you do at safety? What do you do at defensive tackle? What do you do at cornerback? Can they afford to bring back Byron Jones? Does this coaching staff even want to bring back Byron Jones? Because, he was about to be an outcast until Chris Richard showed up, and now Chris Richard's leaving again. It's really fascinating. I wish, it's still, or basically it's too early in the process for us to know, but over the coming weeks, we're going to start to get answers to some of these questions.
And I did ask Steven, and of course he didn't answer. He walked off. He was like, 1, Dak, 2, Amari. And then, of course, I'm like,
number 3, not ready to say.
Who's number 3?
We don't know.
He's like, I'm not going that far. But that's what we do. I mean, we think it's Byron Jones or Malik Collins, and you never know. They might look at it.
Might be Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
In there. You never know.
But
Michael Bennett.
They have to address some of these concerns in free agency, and that's the point. I mean, you do what you can in free agency, which opens you up in the draft. That's that is the goal every single year. They haven't always done as good a job of it as other years, but it's interesting to think the way they could shape this and how that will affect their decisions in the draft.
And we'll talk more about that draft tomorrow, 11 o'clock, right back here on DallasCowboys.com and on the draft show. Yeah, you got it back here. David, I will be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We'll switch out Nick Eatman for Bucky Brooks.
Yes.
Will join us
excited about
here
that.
At the insert hotel name here. Don't want to give that away because I would give it way too much information. So we'll be back. One more segment on the way for the break here on this Wednesday. When we come back, we'll talk about a new rule potentially and being experimented on in the Pro Bowl when we return here on DallasCowboys.com.
Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Want to show your Texas and team pride too? You can. By purchasing your own Stetson, you can look just like how the flag guys do on field at every home game. Stetson hats, the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys and your favorite football team. Get yours today in the Stadium Pro Shop or at Stetson.com.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
It's right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus!
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS 1 score, September 2019.
Essilor is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, helping fans see more and do more with our best vision solutions. Our lens technologies reveal a world more beautiful than you can imagine. For a limited time, get the Essilor Next Gen offer. When you buy the latest generation of Transitions lenses with select Essilor lenses, you can choose a second pair of clear lenses for free with qualifying frame purchases. Restrictions apply. Find a participating eye care professional by visiting EssilorUSA.com. Essilor. See more, do more.
So, you're shopping, and that's when you see it. Aisle 23. Dr. Pepper stacked from top to bottom as far as the eye can see. The phrase too good to be true comes to mind, yet there it is. A rich, delicious Dr. Pepper paradise. Wait, did that can of Dr. Pepper just open itself for you? They all are. As if to say, so nice to treat you. And even though it feels weird to talk to a can, you pick one up and say, it's so nice to be treated. Dr. Pepper, so nice to treat you.
Back to the break.
Final segment here of the break, live from Mobile, Alabama in the 2020 Reese's Senior Bowl. David Hellman, Nick Eatman, Kyle Yeomans with you here on DallasCowboys.com and DallasCowboys.com radio. And guys, Pro Bowl. It's always been a fun time to kind of experiment with new NFL rule changes. They're going to do it again this year.
Like no tackling.
Yeah, and no effort.
No defense.
I'm gonna say, you said it's always a fun time, and I was like, where's
this
going?
going?
With this?
Yeah.
It's definitely not.
They have fun out there
sometimes, but they're going to insert what could be a new rule for onside kicks, and I found this extremely interesting. So basically, the rule is the team that just scored, instead of having an onside kick or kicking off to their opponent, they would get the ball at their own 25-yard line. That's where they would start. They'd give ultimately a 4th and 15. The scoring team has to gain 15 or more yards. It would retain possession and continue that drive. However, if in that one play they did not convert the 15 yards, the opposing team would get the ball back where that ball was spotted at the end of the play. So if you gained 10 yards, you would get it at the opposing team would get it in enemy territory at the 35-yard line. If it was an incomplete pass, then you're all the way back at the 25. And with a play like that, you think about it, with it being 4th and 15, it's mostly a passing down. That's going to be a passing situation. So my question is to you, what do you think about this? It's kind of intriguing to think about just the fact of having a different way to retain possession late in games.
I like the spirit of it. Because I think that's what it's going to take to work around the way the game is changing is like innovation and new ideas. Because, I mean, honestly, what's the point of an onside kick right now anyway? Like, yeah. I think 2 were recovered in the NFL this season, or I mean, it was certainly less than 5 out of however many dozen were attempted, or even 100. Like, the success rate was nothing, and so it's a pointless play, which takes the excitement out of the game because it basically kills the ability for somebody to come back by down multiple scores. So if this is a way you can reintroduce that and have teams have more hope of doing it, I'm all for it. Going through it off the cuff, like, it does suck that kind of removes some of the surprise element. Like, a cool thing about an onside kick is you can never completely predict when it's going to happen. And this obviously is a situation where the defense will be ready for the play. Mm-hmm. But again, if it can inject some drama into late game scenarios, I'm all for it.
I thought the same thing, but I think you still have your surprise onside kicks during the game. I think in this case, you're only going to do it. You're only going to give an opportunity to be on defense on the 25-yard line. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're only going to do that if you just have to late in the game. I mean, it's just late in the game when everyone knows you're going to onside kick anyways.
Well, to counteract that point, what about the teams that look at it analytically or maybe have a strong passing game in terms of, hey, I have Pat Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers in the backfield.
Good.
Let's throw it. Let's go for it.
I would be
4th
all
and 15.
For it. If I had the 32nd ranked defense and I was going up against I'd say number 1 offense, but that would be Dak. But we know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about.
Hey-o.
I'm just saying, if I had the worst defense in the league and I was playing the best quarterback and the best passing game in the league, I'd take my chances on 4th and 15. Now, the analytics say that you're not going to get that. That's why it's put it there. I don't like the 25-yard line. Okay. I don't. That's just me. I don't like the fact that you're already in field goal range. Because if you do an onside kick and they recover it at the 40-yard line, 45-yard line, you're not in field goal range. You still have a little bit of work. It's great field position, but I don't like the 25. I've seen it. Who else was doing this? Was it the AAF?
It's something similar to that.
28-yard line.
Yeah.
I have seen on the 28. That's still down there pretty.
How about the 35?
I know the Broncos tried to get something similar to this past last year or maybe 2 years ago, and they got shot down pretty quickly.
I like the 35-yard line, and it could be a 4th and 12. Mm-hmm. You get it. You're at midfield. I mean, you're cooking at that point.
The irony is that they're doing this in the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
I mean, talk about not a representative
what is that
atmosphere. Like they're not going to play defense anyway. Picking up 4th and 15 should be easy at the Pro Bowl.
That and also what's the recourse? Oh, we don't have it. Like, oh, we didn't get it. Like, okay, well.
It just gives people a chance to see how it would work in a game
I like
situation.
it, but it's not going to.
Well, maybe it gives people like us a chance to just have this conversation and to kind of work through what could and could not be problems.
I love the idea of finding ways around. And, like, I get it. You need to make the game safer. We know too much about it to keep doing things the old way.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, it kind of kills some of the drama of – it kills some of the drama of the game when you know that nobody fields onside kicks anymore. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Well, onside kicks that were at a historic rate of about 21% through 2017. It went down in 2018 to 7%, and then it went back a little bit up in 2019, 13%.
That's honestly shockingly high.
That's not converting it, though. That's just how many
how many they even kicked.
Had.
Okay.
That's how many attempts they had.
There you go.
I would rather see tweaks to that rule, to those
to
alignments.
How the onside kick is done.
And I know that safety is a big part of it here too. And I don't like, there's a lot of purists out there that are like, why do you got to change it and all that? But if that was the case, way back when somebody said, what if we just put helmets on these guys? And they're like, no, we can't do that. Well, let's put helmets, and then let's put face masks, and then, and here we are. So you got to keep, like Dave said, you got to keep evolving. I get that, but, I don't like the kickoff rule as it is. I hate seeing a guy stand back there with his hands up. I want to see the kickoff return. I think it's one of the most exciting plays in the game. Then again, I've never been hurt doing it. So.
Well, what do you think about the XFL is going with a new kickoff rule where you start within 10 yards of each other, and it's basically a punt. So you have a punter back however many yards. I don't know exactly what it is. You have a returner back, and then you have 10 guys up on the line of scrimmage. They're 10 yards away from each other. And basically, as soon as the ball is kicked, they collide and they go for it. And it's supposed to be safer because it's only 10 yards away. And then you get the return and you still have strategic.
Looks like rugby.
A little bit.
Just like.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about rugby or Australian rules football, but, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But, again.
And it's after the catch, not after the kick.
I agree with Nick that the kickoff is one of the coolest plays in football, but it's almost pointless these days.
I know.
There's a few teams that know how to take advantage of it. But I would rather see innovations to keep these things in the game than just keep kicking 98% of kickoffs through the back of the end zone.
Or just putting the ball down and saying gain 15 yards.
Yeah.
Or do you like that? Or do you think that's fun?
I think it would be fun if teams thought they had a realistic shot to get the ball back. I mean, picking up 15 yards is hard. Man, I would love to see that play out. I mean, picking up 15 yards against an NFL defense that knows you have to pass, that's easier said than done.
Here's the question that we talked about before the show. Okay, so let's say that's the rule. Does illegal contact a 5-yard penalty, would that give you a first down?
Automatic first down?
No way. Like, in that situation, you have to get the 15
I would
yards.
think you've got to have a penalty. It's a face mask or a PI or something that gives you 15, that's fine. But nothing short of that should.
Oh my! And I'm just imagining Pat Mahomes lining up and just chunking like a go ball to Tyreek Hill on fourth and 15. But they're just going for the end zone and stop us. I mean, we're going to complete it, or you have to tackle us, and we get the DPI. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you could do.
Rod
with this.
Marinelli's defense, they always would call it money 44.
Money 44.
Which all the defense was lined back, and you'd have guys just standing at the first down marker. So that would be very challenging as well. But probably easier to get than your onside kick the way it is right now.
I like the idea, and I don't know, it might. I'm still not going to watch the Pro Bowl, but I'll be curious to see what happens. I'll probably go look for the results on Twitter.
Yeah. They're also playing around with a potential new rule in terms of false starts and a new way to kind of back off on false starts a little bit in terms of the flags being thrown. They're trying to loosen up the rule.
They already loosen up. I swear to God.
Apparently is the case.
What are they? I need more of this.
It's tough to say. So it is a false start if a flexed eligible receiver in a 2-point stance who flinches or picks up one foot as long as his other foot remains partially on the ground and he resets 1 second prior to the snap.
Chris Beam, you have some of this.
So it's kind of
he's our producer here.
It's a legal shift. It's the whole legal shift thing. It's not.
Not necessarily false starts. It's an illegal shift.
It's with the wide receivers, not with
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I
that
love
makes more
that. I was
sense.
going to say, does anybody else feel like I saw more offensive linemen get away with jumping early this season than I can remember in the rest of my life?
Well, I think what's weird too is that they're always making calls and stuff, and the guard and the center, and they got their hand up and they turn and look back here, and then but all of a sudden, if you just kind of flinch barely, like that's a penalty.
That's a
but
false
everything
start.
else, yeah, I have a whole problem with the way that works because I hate the fact that the defensive linemen, I mean, they're getting hard counted, which is fine. You can do that, right? The guy can change his cadence. But then if you jump off sides, I mean, you jump just for a second and then try to go back, the offensive lineman can pop up and say, and now now it's a penalty.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. All these rules are for the offense.
And saying with the 4th and 15, there was 25 times in the league this year that it was 4th or 15 and greater. They only converted 6 times, so it's 24% of the time.
Wow. That's still higher than
It's higher
onside
than I
kicks.
thought it would be, but
that's more than I would have thought,
Yes.
and more than an onside kick. So
That's
if it's going to
interesting.
make the end of games more entertaining, I'm all for it.
15 times in the whole league last year, there was a 4th and 15.
No, 25 times.
And they got
25 and 6 of 25 is 24% of the time.
And that makes sense because I feel like that stat would have to be specifically for 4th and 15. It can't be 4th and 16 or 14 because of the rule and probably what's being written. It had to be exactly 4th and 15.
I got you.
Most likely for that to happen, which is 25 times is kind of a lot.
Well, and that's a little bit, that stat's is a little skewed just because it could be 4th and 15 from the 20-yard line going in. That's definitely hard to get. You don't have a lot of space. 4th and 15 from your own 25 with Tyreek Hill or somebody that can just, that's part of the play. He can go deep. So that'll be interesting. I mean, I don't, my first thought is I don't know if I like that, but it'll be interesting to see.
Really quick, because Dave brought up the point of the Pro Bowl maybe not being the best place to test it. Would you be okay seeing it in a preseason game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I think that'd
saddle
be fun.
up again, and everybody's excited for the preseason when it gets here because it's been so long since we've seen football. But like by week 2, you're over it. So. Again,
week 3, week 4,
maybe not
week
give
4.
me a reason to be more intrigued by these preseason games. Like, give me a reason for them to try all that stuff out.
Unless that going for 2, or that onside kick's going to maybe lead to an overtime game, then no, I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool.
No overtime in the preseason.
If you're like down by 7, and I'm like, just kick off. Like why do you
Just get it done? Let's get it out of here. Well, we're going to get out of here as well. That's going to do it here for the break. Dave and Nick will be back next week with Derek and Ambar back at the SWBC Mortgage Studios in Frisco. It's been fun filling in with you guys. And, of course, you can catch David and myself on the Draft Show tomorrow, 11 o'clock. We'll be here with Bucky Brooks, and that'll be a whole lot of fun wrapping up Day 2 of the Senior Bowl and then looking ahead to Day 3, the final day that we'll be here for the Reese's Senior Bowl in 2020. So for Dave Hellman, Nick Eatman, I'm Kyle Yeomans saying so long from Mobile, Alabama. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?